Three, two.
Family, this is Pastor Winfield here, and we'd like to welcome you to Friday night conversations with our millennials here at the Potter's House of Fort Worth. I'm so excited because it gives us the opportunity to know what is on our young people's heads, minds, and hearts. I know with everything that has been happening in our world today, we have an opportunity to use our voice now to create change. And I've never seen it like this before. I haven't seen it. It's not that people have not used their voice before in times past, but now it seems as though the issues with George Floyd and Ahmaud Marbury and a whole host of other African American people who have died at the hands of either police brutality or something like it is now capturing the attention of the whole world. And everybody who is standing up and protesting, every generation is standing up together to say, we've had enough. And I wanted to do something that probably we haven't done before in my history of being here, and that is to have a seat to be able to hear the conversations, the thoughts, the minds, the feelings, the emotions that's coming from this generation who's managed to flip the world and turn the world upside down. I'm so excited to have them with us today. I want you to welcome them. Now, we have Pastor Patrice Greer, who is our youth pastor and for all intents and purposes, our gen ed pastor. She oversees both our youth ministry and our millennial ministry. And we have Lance Parker, who is here, that's on our panel, Alexis Oglesby. Lance Parker has an MHA. He's in counseling. We have Alexis Oglesby, who is ACH Child and Family Services. We have the youth pastor from the Potter's House, North Dallas here, Brother Phil Galindo. He's here. T.C. Hughes is here. Abiola Agoro is here. John Wiley is here. Juan Huezo is here. Ryan Cartwright is here. Mikhail Elliott, Melody Jackson, and Courtney Page. All of them are here to represent a generation that has managed to grab our hearts and our attention. And I'm so excited to hear what they have to say. All right, y'all ready? So we're going to have a conversation, and you're privy to a conversation that we are having. And so I told them, no holds barred. We're having a conversation. God bless you. Hallelujah. If it offends you, then get some prayer and, get a glass of water and then come back and have at it again. Or, you can turn it off and wait before you're good enough so that you can hear it. But, in order for us to create change, we've got to deal with uncomfortability. The uncomfortability of questions that we don't want to ask or proverbial answers that we don't want to give. And so now we have an opportunity to do that today. So I'm excited. First of all, before we dive into the questions that we do have for you guys, I want to hear from you guys. I know that we've been in this COVID-19 thing, and we have been quarantined since March. And so going into this year, I cracked a joke to one of my friends, Bishop David Maldonado, and I said, well, with all the prophets and all of the doohickeys, the pastors, the apostles that were saying 2020 is the year of clear vision. Nobody saw this one coming. Yeah. That was interesting that everybody had clear vision but didn't see this one coming. Anyway, I didn't see it coming either.
God had a vision all his own.
2020 had a mask on, right? And we didn't see this coming. And we did not see that in the midst of a pandemic, a global pandemic, that we would have a racial epidemic. That Ahmaud Marbury, the senseless killing of Ahmaud Marbury that happened in February, that would not be seen until March, the end of March, beginning of April, captured our attentions. And it's interesting because the pandemic had us so in our houses that we could not outwork it or outrun it. We had to look at it because it was on our social media platforms. And add on to the injury of that, the senseless and insidious killing and murder, which is what it was, of George Floyd, when the police officer had his knee on the neck of George Floyd and him crying out for his mother, saying, "I can't breathe," which is very interesting because we have heard that statement before. It is almost as if the first time the world couldn't hear it, but this second time the world has heard it. Now, you take all of those things into consideration, possibly cabin fever that has happened to all of us, and now on the cusp of protests in which everybody is out protesting for whatever reason. Some may be cabin fever, but majority of them, I would believe that it's because they do want to see change. I want to hear from you your initial thoughts, feelings about the things that you have seen these past few weeks and how it hit you when you first saw that on our media outlets. And this would be like popcorn, so I'm not going to go down the list or anything like that. Just when you feel it, jump in.
I would say for me, the Armory situation really hit me. I am a part of Track Nation, a former track athlete. I run the streets daily for exercise. And to think that you have to be cautious and exercise in your own neighborhood really hit me and a lot of my friends hard. And that struck me with anger. And then with George Floyd, I had no more anger, it was just frustration. And it's hard to formulate words, to put it in words, to put those emotions in one feeling. To see a person just going out for a jog to not come back home. To a person go to the store and not come back home. And all because of the color of your skin. It's tough. And I'm a father, so I have to be cautious. I have to tell my son, be glad that I'm here to teach you these things now. Because when I was growing up, this wasn't as vocalized as it is now. It wasn't seen. It was here, but we didn't see it. Yeah. And for it to be almost 2 months for something to happen, that even hit me harder. When I saw it, when I heard about it, I literally thought it happened that day. And then I got the information, that was months ago.
Yeah.
I said, why nothing happened?
Right.
It's just a real rough time, and I think the people of this nation now see the fundamental sins of our nation, and they want them cleansed.
Wow. 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 Jump on in. Anybody else?
So when the George Floyd video came out, it actually took me a couple of days to watch it because I was still in my feelings about the Ahmaud Arbery situation. And I just kept saying, you have to watch the video, you have to watch the video. And I kept watching different commentaries about what happened. And once I finally watched it, it opened so many childhood wounds. It opened so many childhood wounds because it made me think about all the lessons that my parents had to instill in me as a black child, how to grow up, how to survive this world. Because I grew up being the fly in the milk, right? So I had to act a certain way. Could not be too ethnic. I had to watch what I said. I had to watch what I did. I always had to be better than them because my better equaled out to their okay.
Wow.
And all of that came back. And it's still there. And it took me seeing a scripture about how God has not given us a spirit of fear, but he's given us power, love, and sound mind. And my sound mind that he has given me has stopped me from wanting to bleed out these wounds, say hurtful things. I'll be honest, my husband and I were cleaning the other day. I told this to Patrice. My husband and I were cleaning the other day. And I think it got so much to me that first he had turned on some Earth, Wind, and Fire. I was good. But then John Mayer came on. And I was like, okay, I can deal with John right now. I can take the John right now. You know, my body is a wonderland. We're good, right? But then Rascal Flatts came on. And that anger,
Wow.
it built up in me so much that I just went out and I was like, I don't want to listen to Rascal Flatts anymore. Life isn't a highway. Turn this off. I don't want that. You better turn back some more black music on right now because we got too much going on and I don't want to hear that. And I was like, oh my God, Melody, what are you doing? Listen, I needed something. I needed something because my spirit was just hurting.
Yeah.
Because as much as we say it hurts, our fellow man that we're coming to say this hurts, they're coming up with excuses. They don't want to justify or don't want to have any empathy with what you're saying and what you're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this whole week has been an emotional, I haven't posted anything. I have not, my own words, I have not posted my own words because I don't know how to put them and help with the change right now.
I hear you. I hear you. That's real.
I feel that. I feel that completely. A phrase that I'm known for saying a lot is that I won't speak to you if I could hurt you. Because I understand that when I'm going through something, the things that I may say may have an effect on somebody else that I'm going to have to later go back and fix. And selfishly, I just don't want to. So I'll wait and fix me, that I can come out and I can speak and give what I need to give to you for you to be great. And I'm struggling right now with what I say to people because I'm confused. I work with so many organizations. I serve within the community. I teach. Goodness, I've been licensed to be able to go out and monitor protests and help people on both sides. And I have all these skills, but I'm confused because it's not that I don't know how to use them. It's just that I don't want to use them. It hit something new, Ahmad and the jogging, and I had a health scare, so I'm out in these streets and I'm slow. So I mean, like, I try to be like, it's okay, and I walk myself through it, I walk folks through it, then something else happens, then Breonna Taylor happens, then we have George Floyd, and it's just like, it was so much at one time that I turned off. And I didn't know how to turn myself back on. I still don't know how to turn myself back on. I'm mad in one moment, I'm sad in the next moment. I hate everybody in one moment. Then I love and I'm sad for them, but then I hate them again. I don't know where to go with the feelings that I have, and I don't know how to apply the skills that I teach to myself, and I lie and say I don't know how, because I know how. I don't want to anymore. And that's the problem right now. I don't want to be the bigger person. I don't want to be like, oh, love. I don't want to be like, well, their life situations taught them those biases. Like, I don't want any of that right now. Right now, I'm just like, burn it down. Burn it all down. Set it on fire. Like that's me right now, and it's not usually me, so I struggle with speaking because it's like, hey, fam. Set it on fire. And that's not me. And I don't want to say that. And I don't have it. And people come to me, and it's coming from work, and I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where I thrive. And I'm on LinkedIn going in.
Yeah.
I started on my CEO's post.
And just went down the list, huh?
I mean, it was good, but it could have been better. You know, and I started going to other company CEOs' posts. Companies ain't got nothing to do. I don't work there, but it benefits me.
It's
we
cathartic.
have a mutual relationship. So how you feeling?
Yeah.
You know, so it's just hard and it's confusing because I want to be better and I want to come out of this, but I also don't. I feel like if we set it on fire, we ain't got no choice but to build it back up, and maybe we can build it back up correctly.
Wow.
Can I tell you, can I tell you, Courtney, you're not by yourself, and I deal with youth ministry. I'm a Christian and love Jesus. But real talk, some days I'm sitting going, God, can I have a day off from being a Christian today? Can I have a break from love today? Can I just deal with where I'm at right now in this moment? Can I let it fly? Because 8 minutes and 46 seconds, there was a gentleman with, his body on the ground because of the hue in his skin. And he's laying there for 8 minutes and 46 seconds crying for his mama, all because of the hue in his skin. And people still don't get it. And my Christianity is supposed to cause me to love you and be okay with you while you got your knee on this man's neck. I'm supposed to be okay with that. And the struggle is real in that regard. When I looked at Ahmaud Arbery and found out that he actually is a young man who was looking at the reason why he looked up in the video they saw beforehand in the house was because he's studying to actually go into electrician and all of that. And so he often goes into houses like that are still being built and that are open to the community for anybody to go through. They even show videos of others going in previous days before that. And he goes in to look up at the same things they looked at, but because of the hue in his skin, he's gone too. And again, I'm supposed to love beyond that. Somehow I'm supposed to pray through it. Somehow I'm supposed to tell young people, pray and it's going, we're going to push through. And even in that, it's tough. Because I'm somewhere between Malcolm X of the old, not once he transitioned, so I get it, Court.
Right.
I'm somewhere
Before
between,
Mecca, before he went to Mecca.
I'm somewhere, between Malcolm before and Martin at the end, and it's, I'm having a war in my members, real talk. I don't want to incite rage or hate in anyone, but at the same time, I want to burn it down and knock it down too, and rebuild it, like you said, the right way. Because I got nephews who are younger than I. And real talk, I'll go down before they ever have to be an Ahmaud Arbery or a George Floyd. I'll be locked up, just like Martin, and you can throw away the key before they ever have to be that guy on the ground like that.
Real talk. Anybody else?
It's interesting to me that a lot of y'all talk about feeling this sense of pain for Ahmaud, because I feel like I heard about the Ahmaud case early. I don't remember what I was doing, but I was reading something like March 3rd or something, and there was speculation of a case of a young black man being shot while he was running. And I remember I literally just tried to scan through, see what was happening, and I just had to close it. Because I was like, I can't right now, I'm having to move back home from school. There's a lot that has just kind of been thrown in the air in my life. And so whenever George Floyd's case came out, I remember I read a little bit of it. I saw the first minute of the video, and my heart felt like somebody had shot me. And I realized I hadn't felt that way about any of these cases since Trayvon Martin. And I pay attention to all the cases, I pay attention to the information, where it's tracking and whether or not the person's been arrested and that type of thing. And so I've kind of found a way to desensitize myself to it in a safe space. But when I tell you I spent 5 minutes and I cried the whole next day from 5 minutes of reading the case, I had to go downstairs to my mom and I was like, I'm crying. And I don't know this man. I didn't even watch him die. I don't know this man at all. And I couldn't figure out why it hurt me so bad. And then I was digging up some poems that I had written in 2017. I don't even remember who died in 2017, but I remember 2017 was a rough year. And I had a poem I had written about my greatest fear being having a child of mine die and me get there after they're dead because the police shot them. And it just made me realize how frustrating and circulating these feelings are, because I've been able to push them off for a minute and give myself some space to get my mental health in check. But it's like God is saying, now that your mental health is in check, here you go. It's back. Deal with it. And so it's so crazy to me that this one case, or you could say 3 cases, Brianna, Ahmaud, George, have just ignited everything, because like y'all said, it's a pandemic. You can't run. Everybody has been uprooted in some level. Nobody's where they were 6 months ago. Nobody.
Right.
Everybody's been uprooted, whether it's your job, whether you have kids at home you weren't supposed to have home, whether you're a kid that's not used to being home that has to be home, whether you've had to find a new apartment. And so I feel like we've just kind of been stripped down to really force ourselves to look at who we are as a country and how little we've changed in the last 3, 5, 6, 8-ish, maybe even 10 years or so in policy-wise.
Pastor, can I? Yeah. Let me first say, before I say anything, I don't think that, black men are monolithic. So when I speak, I want to speak on how I feel, but also just from that black man experience, okay? I'm tired, and I'm a young guy, and I'm tired. I'm extremely appreciative to be a black man. I love being a black man, love it. But also with that appreciation, I am extremely aware of what it means and what it is to be a black man in America. Let's talk about that awareness. The awareness that every day when I go out of my house, I have to deal with the unwritten rules that are constantly on my neck like the shadow is on my back. Those unwritten rules tell me that I have to conform and change who I naturally am, my personality, the way I walk, where I go, how I speak, and all those things combined, not because of who I am, but because of the ignorance and the fear of who I am by those who judge me and those who have preconceived notions of who I am. I also have to fear that at any given time, I have to be the next hashtag. I'm subject to being the next hashtag. That my nephew, who I love, that he has to be the next black boy on TV crying for the black father who is no longer here. I'm afraid that society in America now continues to do what they've always done, but now do it as a sport. Black men are being hunted and killed for sport.
Wow.
And this black man experience is hard. Not just being a man, but being a black man in America. And it's tough, it's tiring. I get frustrated. And to be honest, and Pastor, you know this, I have my questions about theology and religion, because I think God is in control of everything, so why? And with those unanswered questions becomes the anger. And the only thing that God has ever told me, or just whispered in my ear, is don't let the things that you can't change you. But I must admit, I'm changing. Because my first thoughts was kill all white people. Kill them all. Let's go. Let's get the Nat Turner going, and let's kill them all. At this point, I'm tired of protesting. I'm tired of marching. I'm tired, even as an educated black man, still being seen as treated as 3/5 human. And so my question, speaking from this black man experience, Dr. King once said a famous quote. He said, "How long? Not long." And he followed up with saying, that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. So my question is now the time, or shall I have to wait longer as a black man for that arc to bend towards justice, and hopefully I can one day be free?
Whew. That's fine. Are those questions? Or are those rhetorical?
Well, I mean,
Because
you the moderator, so I'm just following you, sir.
just threw it up there, and you can slam dunk it if you want to,
you
Pastor. But, wow. Let me say this, and then I want to open it up to everybody else, and everybody can chime in. Everything that you stated, everything, your feelings, your emotions, are very familiar to me because I've had them. And as a pastor, I've had them. In my formative years of ministry, I've had them. So your questions are very poignant. One of the things that I believe Dr. King was saying when he says that, the arc bend towards justice, the idea is, I'm tired of waiting. My father, who is 76, will be 76 years old next week, said the exact same thing at my house on Wednesday. Okay? I want us to kind of embrace that. Okay? You just said, I'm tired. I told you, familiar. My dad, 76, said the same thing. That's 3 generations that's saying the same thing. Tired. And he was tired when he was your age. Because you're talking about a black man who grew up in Gloucester, Mississippi. And if you never heard of it, it's because it's that big. It's Mississippi. And literally you could get lynched and the world not find out about it. So those thoughts are real. I've always held this in my head, though. I believe that there is justice that we're looking for in the earth. Some of it we will get. Some of it we will see. Sometimes we won't see it. But just because we don't see it doesn't mean that justice was not given. In other words, people who do wrong ultimately will receive a different kind of justice that we don't see. And that's the reason why a lot of people would say, well, have mercy on their souls. When Jesus says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, he was saying, Lord, I know they don't know what they do, so I'm praying for them because, man, after this thing is over, whew, they're going to feel some kind of way. I mean, Judas felt some kind of way. He committed suicide, right? Peter felt some kind of way and could not forgive himself until Jesus had to come to him and to physically forgive him and snatch him out of it. I do believe that people receive justice, both either divine or humanly, but if they don't get the human justice, they will get the divine justice. And that's right. But we as human beings, we want to see it, right? I'm not going to sleep right until I see it. And that's a quandary that we've got to deal with within the context of our own humanity that may not be answered in our lifetime. So, I mean, that's the way that I would answer that, but point taken. And great points, salient points. Anybody else?
This didn't hit me until I read a post on Facebook about the young black woman who took the video of George Floyd being murdered, how she has been attacked for, quote unquote, not doing anything. And it's interesting you say that you're tired because how that impotence, I mean, I just got here. Y'all have been dealing with this far longer than my people have, to say it in such a term. And it's interesting you mentioned Peter because Didn't he deny Jesus 3 times? Didn't he feel like he couldn't do anything about this man that he loved being taken? And it woke something up in me, and I know it's been waking up in a lot of you. We feel like we've been distracted because we feel like we didn't have a choice. It's just bad things happen in the world. That's just the way things are. This is a revolution. This is big. It's waking up inside people that it didn't wake up before. I was fed this idea. If you go to America, keep your head down, learn good English, and just try to make it. And that is all I focused on doing. Just keep your head down, speak good English, yes sir, yes ma'am, and move on. A lot of us, I've lost myself. And hearing you all say that, well, basically the same thing I'm trying to say. I mean, everyone is playing a role. Everyone has a purpose. Maybe she wasn't vocal about it. Maybe she didn't speak up at the moment, but she showed the world. You know, she showed the world. I've struggled with being a believer. Jesus Christ to me was no more than a symbol that I wanted to follow. Love, compassion, heck yeah. But it didn't mean anything until now. It didn't mean anything until I saw this man call out for his mother. Didn't he call out for his father? And I'm like a martyr symbol, whatever you want to call it. He was a man. I'm a man. I'm a person. It was time to grow up. It was time to grow up and see the world for what it really was and say, I don't want this. I don't want my kids to grow up in this. I don't want my kids to pick a side. Like either you're professional and you fit in with this group of people, or you're a thug, or you're looked down upon. What you said, basically what's the saying? Twice as hard for half as much.
Oh, yeah.
It's been resonating, and I think it's been resonating a whole lot of us. A lot of us that didn't feel like we've had a voice before. A lot of us that weren't even tired to begin with. We were just desensitized to what had been going on for the longest time, and we're all connected now. I mean, we all have a phone. Like Will Smith said, it's always been around. It's just being recorded now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And a lot of us have been put in check. A lot of us have been put in check. What have I been doing? Why have I been treating this person so? It's time to grow up. It's time for a lot of people to grow up. It's time for a lot of us to just take the Band-Aid off, or take the whatever off our eyes, just open our eyes.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Whew, thank you. I think that's the first time I heard someone talk about the lady who held the phone. And
She's 17.
yeah, and she's 17.
She's 17.
17. Could you guys imagine the feeling of helplessness watching something like this happen, and there is absolutely nothing that you can do about it? Wow. Thank you for that. The sense of powerlessness. That's a very strong emotion. Sense of powerlessness. And I think individually, at some point, we've all felt that way. Can you imagine what George Floyd was feeling? The sense of powerlessness, a grown man on the ground, body fluids are leaving his body, and a sense of powerlessness to the point where his cry is for his mama. Yeah, that's poignant. Poignant. Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I want to kind of talk from the lens of a Latino minister that is ministering to 95 to 98% in our ministry African American. And I took a quote unquote, air quote, hiatus from speaking, because here's the reality. My heart wants to jump in and my heart wants to defend, because I had the thought of, what if it was one of my students? What if it was a father of one of my students? And the thought hit me, and all I could do is cry. And my wife, she said something to me last week. She said, "Do you think it's time for you to say something?" And I thought about it, because I should say something, because I've heard somewhere that silence is like compliance. But my heart was saying, I don't want to say anything for the sake of just saying something. Which a lot of people are doing. Yeah.
That's all right. It's true though.
Yeah.
Throw the whole thing away.
And then there's the fear of, what if my thought process and my heart is right, but how it comes out is perceived negative. My heart is, I want to help. I talked to Patrice and I said, what do I need to do as a Hispanic brother, a believer, a Christian, a minister? What can I do? Because I want to jump in, because like I grew up with so many different African American friends. You know, I was hearing somebody say, well, you don't know what it's like to walk down the street and the lady that's across the street clutches her purse because she sees you. But you don't know what it's like
Come on.
to live in a country
Come on.
that last year
Say it.
didn't even want us here.
Say it. Facts.
And then I have students that are pledging their lives. I'm gonna serve in this country. And I've got to sit there and just say, pray about it, please. Please pray. I don't want to detour it. I got 3 students right now that have already pledged their lives. I'm gonna go serve for my country. But I really want to say, you're serving for a country that doesn't even want us, that will not even treat you like a full human being. And it's hard. It's hard, and I refuse to sit on the sidelines because I'm not dark enough. Hey, I'm you, you're me.
Right.
The Bible says we are our brother's keeper.
Right.
And I refuse to be silent. And that's why these opportunities, even in chaos, these are opportunities. And I believe that you have to seize the opportunity of a lifetime in the lifetime of the opportunity. This is an opportunity for us as millennials, because check this out, Generation Z is looking at us. And we have to be cautious because they're taking their cues from us. And I'm challenging myself just like I'm challenging you, just like I'm challenging the people around my circle. We've got to show them, not tell them the way. We've got to show them. And it's opportunity for us to be the church, the big C, the church. To be who God has called us to be, not to shy away because I really don't have anything to say. I'm just going to smile. No, it's our opportunity to stand up for justice. You know, the Bible, Psalm 37, do not fret because of evil men, nor be envious of those who do wrong. For like the grass, they will wither away. Trust in the Lord and do good. I see a glimmer of hope. I see a glimmer of hope. And if it's just a glimmer that I can see in my lifetime, I'm okay with that. But as long as we're marching forward. You know, Martin Luther said, I have a dream. Well, we have a choice. We have a choice.
Good.
And I'm so thankful for this opportunity to share because, man, I jumped out of my hiatus to speak up because there's too many people not saying anything. Silence is compliance. And I refuse for any of my students to feel like, well, Pastor Phil ain't saying nothing. What if? Nah, we're gonna set the record straight. You are me and I am you. We are one. And I pray the prayer of that Jesus prayed. Father, let them be one, like you and I are one. And that's been my prayer since this, my heart aches, my heart hurts for 2017 when little African-American kids were swimming in a pool in McKinney, Texas.
Yeah.
Little girl gets dragged. And last year, just a little hit a little bit home when they're putting little Hispanic kids in kennels.
Yes. Yes.
What else do we put in kennels?
Dogs.
And my initial thought when I first saw all of this happening is we're in 2020 and we're still here. But I believe change. You told us, you've told me that where there is no challenge, there's no change.
Right.
And we've got to challenge the narrative.
Right.
We've got to challenge the culture. And again, I'm just so thankful to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for that. John, go ahead. Jump in.
I got a lot to say, but I don't want to say a lot. I think when I read the news of Ahmaud being shot by two men, I assumed it was police. I said, okay, another black guy, in my mind actually I said, okay, another black guy got shot by police. I guess the facts will come out eventually and this will just be another thing. Then I started seeing it on my social media. The white truck blocking the road, him trying to get by, realizing he had no other chance but to fight. And I was like, oh shoot, those aren't cops. And I started digging into the facts. And as I was digging into the facts, I wasn't posting anything on social media because I have a platform. And I've learned that through whatever system, that if I speak too soon on the platform, I'm gonna have to redact something later because something's gonna come out and it's not gonna look good, it's gonna be a bad look, it's gonna stir something up, gonna cause division where division shouldn't be, right? And so I was reading Ezekiel, and I was in the 3rd chapter of Ezekiel, 10th verse through the 15th verse, and this is where God tells Ezekiel to go sit with the people that he commanded him to give this word to. And at the very end of it, it says that he sat with the people and was sad with them for 7 days.
Yes.
Right. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna sit with the people in this. And I guess as I was going on, the young woman was shot in her apartment in New York because the boyfriend defended himself against 3 dudes that barged into their home unannounced, shot what he didn't know was an armed officer in the leg to defend themselves. She dies. That hit different. I said, okay, now I'm feeling something. Now I'm feeling some kind of way. And then when I see the video of this cop kneeling on a man's neck, I didn't know it was for nearly 9 minutes at the beginning. All I know is he was kneeling on her neck. I still haven't watched the whole video because then I might want to burn something down.
Yeah.
But
I can't either. It's okay.
But he was kneeling for 9 minutes, 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I can't even kneel for 8 minutes and 46 seconds anywhere without feeling uncomfortable. Yeah. So to know that this guy likely was pushing through pain to do this thing to another man, that's when I woke up and I posted. Because enough is enough. Enough's been enough. And we can label it and we can debate and we can talk about systems and we can talk about whatever, but like, can we just agree that that's wrong? Can we just be there?
Yeah.
Can we just be there? We don't got to talk about black, white. That is wrong. And then the next logical step is why? Well, kind of obvious why. And as the facts kept coming out, it just kept hitting. And so I'm here as a white guy, and I want to learn. I can't resonate fully with what's going on, but I know that what went on is wrong, and I know what's been going on is wrong. And I tried to voice this to my sister after having some conversations with some friends through the week about this situation, the people that deny that there's a systemic problem, people that deny that there's these things going on, and I'm baffled, and I tried to put it into words, and I think what I'm coming down to is I'm a guy that goes to therapy, and my therapist and whoever else knows that as soon as they know what's wrong with you, them giving you a prescription doesn't fix it. It's a good step in the right direction, but in order to fix it, it's going to take a whole lot of very intense and serious, real conversations to get what's wrong fixed. So we can say that it's been fixed with legislation, with a piece of paper. We can say there's no racist laws, but we still need to have these conversations to get this out.
Yeah.
To change ideology, to purge this thing out of us, because there's residual stuff happening. So that's about all.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know what's funny? There are racist laws still to this day.
Still to this very
Still
day.
to this day. They just got rid of, there was still a law in the books in like Alabama or Mississippi. And not even that one. It legally allowed you to still own slaves with a little caveat. And they just pulled it out, I think in like 2018, and officially removed it through a vote with the city council. But it was still written on the books to an extent that you can do this to another person and you have full power over a person of another race solely because of their race. So even then, they're still not all off the books, and that's what makes this even crazier, is they're still on the books.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When I first heard about Ahmaud and everything, my first thought was, well, what do you expect? Here we go again. I mean, it's been like this from time before I was even born. So what do you expect? And then the George Floyd situation happened, and I watched the video, and immediately I got frustrated because I looked at the surroundings and what was happening, and then I looked at the people were telling them, yo, check on him. He's saying he can't breathe, check on him. And the guy is just standing there unbothered. No, he's good. What kind of nonsense is that? You ain't even gonna think to just look around and look at him for yourself, put your own eyes on him and assess him for yourself. And then I continued to watch it, and I felt his cry. And he began to cry out for his mom, and that ripped my heart to pieces. And it's almost as if I felt his pain in that very moment through the video. And then I looked at the cop, and it was weird because it was almost like for a split second, he and I made eye contact through the video. And I saw the evilness, and I saw the hate, and I immediately got frustrated. And I was like, man, there's so much going on that is unseen in this that we have to understand as well as we proceed and move forward with dealing with this. And when I saw his face, it was like, oh, this is going to be bad. And I knew it was going to have a different reaction because of the look in that cop's face and how he looked as if he enjoyed what he was doing, it was like he was like like he was like forcing his body weight on that man. And it's like, all of that stuff, man, is just like, and then there's a piece of me that's like, I'm not scared for myself, but my boys. I have a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old, African-American, handsome, intelligent boys whom now I have to figure out how to raise them to understand that this is the truth about the world that we live in, and this is how you handle yourself. And it's like, I have to think about having those conversations with them at a young age. Because I remember myself getting into a fight with a Caucasian young man because he said the N-word. And I whooped that joker tail for it. And by the grace of God, I got away with it. But it's like, I'm on a different page now, because now I'm responsible for teaching my son the right things to do. When in the wrong situation, and he feels that the right thing to do is the wrong thing. Like all of that, those things is just running in my head, and it's like, oh my, I'm not nervous for myself. I'm nervous for my boys. And it's like, I don't want them to start going to school by themselves, and they have an interaction with the cop that's running with the cop that's bad, and I'm not there to protect them, and I'm not there to jump in, and I'm not there to take the bullet for them, because I'm going to show it better not be one of my boys, because I'm coming. I'm saved, and I love the Lord, but not mine. And that's it. And so all of that is resonated in my spirit. And there was one thing that my parents taught me, and that's to not speak up if I don't know what to say. If I don't know how I feel, if I'm unsure, don't say nothing at all. I didn't say anything, and I sat quiet and silent, and that silence gave God time to work on me and show me some things. And ever since then, my stance has been different with my thought process and how to work this out. And even how to teach my boys, encouraging them to get involved with your community. Know what's going on in your community, and understand and surround yourself around the right groups and the right organizations that's going to help you to be able to make change the right way, so that you know how to speak up the right way. And it's all of these different strategies just start coming. And it's like, man, and so I'm at this point now, I don't even want to I don't even care for expressing myself. Let's just get the job done. Cause obviously this time, in this day and age, it calls for a different form of motion. And I was talking to one of my supervisors today about everything, and he said, you know what, man, it's crazy that we can send people to the moon, but we can't deal with these things here. My supervisor is Caucasian. He said, that just baffles me, man. And I said, you know what? I hear all of this, and the one thing that has not changed is leadership. Because I work for Wells Fargo, and everybody knows what happened with Wells Fargo. And I say, anytime something bad happens in corporate America, something big that affects the lives of people, the first thing that they do when they send them to trial is change leadership. And I said, that is the same thing that needs to happen now, because we have yet to put somebody in leadership. And yes, we can go vote and we can go do all those things, but there has to be something in place to where we can put the right people in leadership now, because we don't have time to wait. Because while we waiting until another time comes to voting season comes, more people are dying, more people are suffering, more people are going without, more people are being discriminated against, and they don't deserve it. So it's like there's got to be something else, another way that we are able to get the right people in place. And that's literally where my thoughts are. And it's just like, it's so many different strategies, and I'm looking at myself like, okay, Ryan, now Howard, you got this understanding and this wisdom now. Now where is your part in that? And I'm asking God, okay, Lord, where is my part in it? I'm down to do whatever I need to do. Study, research, so that I can go and bring people with me. Because we can't wait anymore. This is something that has to end now. And that's where I'm at with it.
And thank you guys. Everybody that didn't answer that, I want you to chime in on this next one. And I'd like to eventually go back to that voting piece, because this is a voting year. Primaries are coming up in the next few weeks for us. And I want us to be able to have some things that we can move to, and some things that I want to challenge you guys in your generation to do. But let me deal with this question, because this is a hotbed question that's been popping up, especially now. To those who previously didn't understand the whole Kaepernick taking a knee, what can you tell them now that the 8 minute and 46 seconds of the knee to George Floyd's neck has their attention? What do you tell them now? I posted a graphic on my social media platforms of Kaepernick kneeling on one side and then the officer kneeling on the other side. And the officer kneeling on Floyd's neck, over it says "this," and then Kaepernick kneeling on that side, it says "why this is." This is why. And for a lot of people, they don't know. Of course, we've had athletes now to speak on it, talk about it. And I can get controversial with that, because I'm still trying to figure out where were you when he was kneeling. But that's beside the problem. And now everybody is making comments, coming out with comments. But just because you make a comment, it does not mean that you make a stand. Yeah, it's fashionable.
There's a certain narrative to the history of this country.
Yeah, go ahead, speak to it.
Certain narrative that, you get taught in school. This country's pretty old already. It's been about 200-something years. It's easy for the principal ideals to change throughout history. That initial idea can be corrupted. And, it was corrupted from the start. My point is, have y'all heard the phrase, when fascism comes to America, it's going to be wearing stars and stripes?
Yes.
That's what I understood by Kaepernick taking a knee. It's going against the status quo. It's what we're all trying to do now. We're all looking at ourselves in the mirror. How can I be part of this change? Right. How can I be on the right side of history? Right. How can I be part of the narrative, not the right or the wrong narrative, just the narrative? What is going on? How can I be part of that? And right. Kaepernick just kind of beat a lot of us to it. But like I said, it's taking some time for some of us to wake up. And it had to come to this for some of us to wake up and want to make that change.
I hear you, yeah. Kel, you want to?
Yeah, so for me, with the Kaepernick situation, it makes me think of the desensitization that people have, and which I also have had as even an African American. Growing up, I didn't really experience much in my neighborhood. I had heard stories here and there, but for it not to directly hit me personally, I was like, well, this stuff doesn't even happen as often as everyone's saying. And then you begin to get all these videos and all these different things, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is something. And so it was almost like with the Kaepernick thing, it's like it was a warning before destruction, And if you weren't able to feel during that time, if you weren't able to care during that time, now is the time, is what I would tell those people. Is if you have not been able to find a way to feel what other people are feeling, because it can be so easy to be in our own little bubble, and just because it's not affecting us personally, you don't have anything to do with it. But now is the time, and I'm never going to make that mistake again. I'm always going to be able to see someone, white, black, whatever it is, and say, I see what you're going through, and I'm going to try to feel for that. I have empathy with that. So.
I feel like for part of the question, the biggest thing that I've been seeing, normally I don't argue with people online. I stopped doing it a couple of years ago.
Normally.
Yeah, normally.
I don't either normally.
Normally I'm like, you know what? No.
But it's cathartic
It's not
now.
normal right now.
Very
It's not
cathartic.
normal.
Lord knows I've been arguing online. And the thing is there are all of these different non-black people commenting saying, why can't we just go back to normal? And I've been trying to explain to them, that's how it sounds in my head. I'm trying to explain to them, this is my normal. And they're like, well, is it really? And I'm like, you guys aren't understanding. Kaepernick kneeled for the first time in the game, what, 3 years ago? Is it 3 years? If 3 years ago, he was complaining about something, right? Because that's how they take it. He was complaining. And we're now having to go through the same thing again. If somebody's complaining about something for 3 years, doesn't that mean it's a problem? And so like that's how I've been getting through to some of these people, is having to explain to them, if you keep hearing about something and you're tired of hearing it, then I need you to understand I'm tired of living it. We both want the same thing. We both want to not have to talk about this anymore. So if we both want to have to not talk about it, what actions can we take in order to get to that? You know, and I keep hearing from people that they don't know what to do or what to say. And I think the biggest thing is that it's not even what you say, it's really what you do. I had friends text me, they were like, should I post as normal? What can I do that doesn't look gimmicky or bad? I mean, I ended up compiling a list of 11 things people can do in general that don't require physically going anywhere in order to make a difference. Because it's so important. And so I would rather see than somebody post hashtag Black Lives Matter. I would rather see them post that they donated $100 to Black Lives Matter. I would rather see them post that they decided to call their local person running for a campaign and they decided to go phone bank for them today or do phone banking from home. And I feel like if we can shift that and kind of get on the same level of none of us want to have to deal with this anymore, then we can then kind of begin to move forward. And I think that's something I've been seeing in my little online arguments, is that after explaining that, they go, oh. And they kind of, something in them begins to kick on and they start to get it.
It's a shame that it's gotten this far. I saw the response to that, and it was, well, a lot of folks just boycotted a corporation, Nike, and you can still see how people are just trying to justify, trying to tell themselves, like, why can't things just go back to normal? Like, justifying, not looking in the mirror, just justifying over and over, justifying. And it's a shame. It's a struggle because now there's more push on both sides. It's push. There's a struggle. There's so much struggle right now. You can see in, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, people boycotted Nike, and I think that's ridiculous. That.
Let me interject, and I know some more people want to say. Let me interject. For the most part, the argument has been him kneeling and disrespecting the flag, which meant that him protesting was a blight against patriotism. But then it would imply that patriotism then embraces racism. So for many people, it's cold. This is cold, right? You know, you're disrespecting the flag. Well, he got the idea from a vet. I mean, if it was not disrespectful to that veteran, then why would it be disrespectful to you? And if you feel that strong about patriotism, then why sing the Star Spangled Banner? Because there is racism within the context of that song. So now obviously all of it is cold. I want us just with the thought and understanding of these conversations that's happening, because my challenge to people is that I want you to look beyond your glazed on patriotism, and I want you to see it for what it really is. Slavery or racism is not something that is, I used to say that racism is imbued within the fabric of our country. Now, I say racism is some of the threads in the fabric of our country, because you started a country with racism. And so we are now kind of seeing some of the fruits of that. And now it's not cool or kosher to be that anymore, because the environment has changed, the generations have changed, the mindsets have changed, in which there is not an over embracing of this concept of patriotism and this false sense of what it is. And so that's a part of the conversation when we're talking about this. But I'm sorry, I said I wasn't gonna say anything, but go ahead.
Can I jump into it right quick?
Jump.
Just because of what you said, when it comes to the Star Spangled Banner,
Yeah.
I had this thought. It wasn't written for me in the first place.
Wasn't written for me.
Because it was written while it was written while we were still slaves. So
Right.
it didn't have me in mind.
Right.
So why should I sing it?
Right.
If some of the laws that were written didn't have me in mind either, because why should I follow those? And so that's where my challenge is to some degree, because I'm going, well, if it wasn't written for me, but you want me to abide by it, then somehow we need to figure out how to redo that whole setup, because we weren't even in mind when you wrote those laws. That I wasn't a thought when you wrote that down on paper and you signed that into agreement. So we need to go back to the beginning, back to what Courtney was saying, burn the whole thing. And let's start over. Let's start over.
New song, new everything.
because we need to have everybody in mind. Everybody needs to be in mind when we're writing a song for our country. If it's our country and you want us to stand and be in agreement with it, or pledge to a flag and it means something to me, well, I mean, I should have a say-so in that. I should have a part of it. Other than that, don't expect me to respect what you don't respect.
Yeah. On the level that you respect it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a way, that's exactly what it is, though, because you say they didn't have you in mind. They had you in mind in verse 2 when they mentioned the slaves.
Gotcha.
So that's the mind that they like you to stay in.
That was their mind. Yeah.
So the trouble is that right now, because we are not slaves, because of all the things that were burned down previously, set fire to it.
Somebody's a
We are no longer slaves. We're no longer slaves. I mean, so they did.
We're
So
going to have to pray.
Yeah,
Pray fire. Spirit of Elijah's in this place. Calling down fire. Go ahead.
please leave your hands toward me. It's been a rough week. But they did. They had you in mind. And the thing is that you're not staying in the position in which they wanted you to stick in. See, I'm from Wichita, Kansas, and we're right in the middle. So we weren't really fighting to be free. We weren't fighting we weren't slaves. We sat right in there, and just, we are separate but equal. It's a phrase that we use a lot. I am 38 years old, I think, 39, 38. I'm one of those numbers. And
I know you lose track.
Yeah, I'm old enough to forget. And in one of those, and I was bused to school. I actually took a 45-minute bus drive when they started trying to desegregate us, right? So I drove 45 minutes through my entire elementary school. I had to go so I could be one of the 6 black kids to attend the school, so the schools were not all white. And so we're not that far separated from it. But when people see those two pictures together, I don't think that they're not understanding what he's kneeling for. What they're not understanding is why we just can't go back into our corner and let things be the way they were. When they're saying normal, they're saying shut up. Yes, we know. We know that this is how things are working. We know that we stepped on your back to accomplish this. But look how wonderful it is. Look at America. My blue passport gets me into any country. I've been around the world 3 times. And that blue passport gives me privileges. Look at you. Your ancestors built this. Look at what you get for being American. Now shut up. And let us just be where we were. Because look how great you are. Look at your privileges. Look at your technology. They're not concerned about changing those threads that still keep us down and keep their knees to our necks, because they've used those to build this country to be what it is, which is great. This country is great. We have so many freaking things that other countries do not. I have to admit that. I've been to a lot of places. We got a lot going on over here. good and bad. But they know what's happening while he's kneeling, but they don't understand what the problem is because we got it good enough.
Or it's upsetting their economic base, their financial base, and their investors, which really, if you want to find out what the problem is with a lot of people, follow the dollar.
Social
Touch the money.
stratification.
Yes.
Social stratification. 8 minutes, 46 seconds. What will I say? Time's up. Time's up. Time's up on rationalizing racism and just wrong. Time's up on dehumanizing the victim. That's what I would say to them, white people, or whoever feels that way, because it's not just white people. But then, too, I would also say to the black community, time is also up. Time is up on your apathy. Time is up, and don't get mad at me. Time is up on the house nigga who is so enamored by the big house and the big table, they will do whatever they can to live in the master's quarter and eat the crumbs off the master's table. Yes. Time is up.
Yes.
Why would I be mad at that? Aptly put.
Time is up. Now, the one thing that I will say about kind of the Trump effect is these last, 3 years and a half, it has forced everyone to get involved. You can no longer afford to stand on the sideline with apathy and just say, it is what it is. So that's what I would say to them. I mean, to your point, this is the new normal. And we as a black community, or whatever community that's quote unquote labeled minorities, we also have to understand that we have to get into the game. Not just, I love marching and protesting, that's good, but we can do so much more. So it's time for us to have legislation that counts. It's time for us to have education in our mind and our psyche that matters, that will help us strip off the psychological control of the minority and the Negro. It is also time for us to have representation that will not sell their soul just to be at the master's table. These are the three things that our community needs. Again, I repeat, education, legislation, of course, representation, because the bottom line is this, and I think, Roosevelt even kind of had this conversation with Douglas. He told him basically that in order for us to respect you, you have to be independent of us. And if the black community is ever going to gain the respect that it's asking for, it needs to first of all stop asking and take it. Take on the responsibility and the ownership that it has within his own community to galvanize themselves, have a sense of communal pride. Show what we are worth, because every other community knows what we're worth. It's a problem when America loves the entertainment value of Black America, but not the actual human value of Black America. So we have to change that narrative, and we have to stop asking for what we want, and we have to take it by any means necessary.
Let me dive in there and ask this, and I want everybody to chime in on this one, because this is very important for how we move forward, because it's one thing for you to protest. It's another thing for you to keep that same energy when it's time for you to vote. It's another thing for you to keep that same energy when it's time for you to be involved in the political process, where you do not vote for people, but you vote for policy. Okay, those are two totally different things, because historically speaking, elections have been popularity contests. And it's time out for us electing people just because, well, if you know anything about me, you can go back and see my history of how I dealt with black people. And if you don't vote for me, you're not black. What? It's time out for politicians taking our vote, but not hearing the policies that's going to impact us. And so I want to hear from you guys, because there's a whole host of things and answers to this question. It's not just one, it's many. Protesting is a part of it, but there's protesting is just getting attention. Real decisions that will change this country are not made on the streets. And how do you get a part of that process to be in the room for police transforming or changing police policies and how our communities are policed? How do you get on the board for reviewing the police structure, making sure that that's happening? How do you contact your mayor and to make sure that there are certain things that happen? How do you go to City Hall? How about that? Go to City Hall where you are a voice in there, so when they're having these conversations, we're not at home being the ones that it's happening to. Law is happening to us versus us being a part of the enforcement of the law. I mean, it's a whole host of things: economic, financial. You talked about education, the whole idea of education. And I need for y'all to give me about a good 15 more minutes. I know it's only supposed to be an hour, but I need to take some pastoral liberty because we've got to have this conversation. I don't want to leave here without having this conversation. Historically, and I'm a black man who was a history teacher and an English teacher, and so by nature of my calling and my vocation, you can't just tell me anything about the history of this country. I taught history, and one of the things that I had to do within the curriculum that was given to me to teach black people, black kids, is to inculcate our own history within what they gave me.
Yes.
Okay? And to have a balanced approach of it, because it's not the history of the United States until all of our history is in there. African American, Latino American, Asian American, all of our history needs to be in there in order for it to be the history of the United States. Other than that, it is your story of the United States, and that needs to change, right? So how does that, all of the things that's within our reach to change, and I believe that it's in our reach. I believe that it's in our reach like never before. I believe it's in our reach. So I want to hear from you guys your thoughts on what does that change look like for you, and what's within your reach that you're going to reach for and try to change. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm bursting at the seams.
I see you over there. You're like, woo, woo, my wheelhouse.
So first of all, if you all don't know, I work as a political consultant part-time for different candidates, helping them run, and also working long-term with the people that are in policy. And it's frightening that I worked in Amy Klobuchar's office for 6 months as an internship my freshman year, and I missed that she was the one that passed on prosecuting this case the first time it came around with Derek Chauvin, and the last time he killed somebody as an officer. I missed that. Now for me, I do my research. I spend hours on this. This is how I spend my free time. And so for someone like me to miss that woman as a prosecutor choosing to say, I don't want to deal with this, and passing it on to be dealt with in public trial, giving the judge free rein to take that and just say, you know what, no, and let it go, is frightening. So when we talk about holding our people accountable, we talk about holding politicians accountable, that is extremely important, because this is somebody who a week ago was being looked at for the VP position for Joe Biden. This is somebody who was at the top of the list to become the possible vice presidential candidate and possibly the vice president, the same person who chose to not prosecute almost any police cases, death-related cases at all while they were prosecutor for the state of Minnesota. And so it's frightening, but it's important because it lets people understand. If she had not been elected to that position as the prosecutor and somebody else had been, it's very possible that they would have been the ones to prosecute this, and Derek Chauvin would not be an officer anymore. So this just wouldn't have happened because he would not be an officer. He would have been removed and possibly jailed and barred from being an officer anywhere in the country. And that's a direct connection of voting for somebody and having a direct effect. And the thing about all these cases that happen all over the country is that more often than not, the people that tell us whether or not they're going to press charges are all elected. The sheriff's office, those are all elected, every single country. Either elected or they're appointed, every state. The head of the police chief, that's either elected or appointed, every single state. And who appoints that is a person who's elected. And so it's so important that we do our research and look at these candidates and look up their history and just Google. If you literally take the time to just Google most of the time, you look up the person's name and their stance on Black Lives Matter. That will tell you everything you need to know. You'll have everything pulled up. You can find where they are. If they're a federal level candidate, there are websites like Ballotpedia, which is free, and they tell you everything the person has voted for and where they lean left, right on certain policies. It's very in-depth. But that's the thing that we have to remember is that we didn't have these numbers voting-wise for the protests in Fort Worth that we did a few years ago whenever, actually was it last year Deborah people ran or the year before? Well, I think it was last year when we last had a candidacy, our voter turnout was extremely low. We're talking all-time low across the board, whether it's a local election or a federal election. And so now we have all these people protesting, and the biggest thing is trying to get them to remember to stay up to date and be ready when the time comes, because we have more primaries coming. We already had some primaries in Texas in March. We have them coming around again. We have a second round for runoffs again. And so if it's just trying to look it up, trying to tell your friends, trying to remind yourself, if you can't remember to go do it, here's something I found that's convenient for people who don't really pay attention. Set a time in your calendar and say, okay, this election's coming in 6 months. Let me just set a reminder for a month ahead of time so I can remember to register to vote. Let me set a reminder for 2 weeks ahead of time so I remember to vote for early voting. And if I forget, let me set a reminder for the day of so that I'll remember at the very least to go vote on the day of. And even if I didn't register, in Texas we have a policy where if you get to the polls and you aren't registered to vote, you can still vote and your ballot will be sent off to where it'll be considered if there's a possible runoff or if there are close numbers. It'll be thrown in and it will be one of the deciding votes, whether or not you're registered or not. People don't know that. They think if they didn't register on time, they just won't go. But it's so important to recognize that and add that in there. And I think another thing with this is trying to understand that we can't vote based off of people. Just like Pastor said, people like too much to see a candidate, they see them talk and they go, ooh, love them. But it's like, did you actually do any research?
Right.
Did you actually look, especially for our presidential elections, all these people have been in big positions. So you can look up every single thing that they've ever done.
That's right.
These are people with full live histories that are on the internet. And like I said, you can go on Ballotpedia, you can look up what they've done, you can go on congress.gov, look at the bills that they've signed, look at the bills that they voted yes to. You go and look at some of these people's bill history, and you see what they said okay to, and I promise you'll be shocked. You'll be absolutely shocked. And having these people not only speak out, but show their actions. If you were in office for 10 years, you didn't do a single thing to help black communities or communities of color in that whole 10 years, you shouldn't be considered sometimes. And that's the thing that we have to start choosing, is being able to stomach the fact that these people, at the end of the day, are politicians. And politicians are about one thing, and that's winning. I know that sounds very disparaging to say. It sounds disparaging to say.
That's the word. You'll hear electability.
Electability. Electability. And after working and living with these people and learning, I promise you, they do not care about what we have to say unless you can follow it up with a vote or something that removes them. They do not care. People are even calling offices right now across the state, and they're calling different countries, different states, and saying, hey, I'm mad about this, but guess who you're talking to? An intern. Guess what the intern is going to do with your information? Throw it in the trash. It's not going anywhere. It's going directly in the trash. It feels good, it feels empowering, but unless you can actually, whether it's going and talking to a staff member in the office and actually asking for somebody who reports back to that person who's in charge, or whether it's actually showing up at the office. I don't think people know this also, and I'm gonna stop after this, but if you go anywhere in Congress and you show up with at least 5 or 6 people, you can get a meeting with somebody in the office. 5 or 6 people, typically they can't ignore 5 or 6 people. A single person, they will tell you to leave, and they'll say they don't have time. But you show up with 5 or 6 people, that senator or congressperson has to give you some sort of a meeting with, whether it's their legislative aide, their agricultural aide, somebody in some issue area, and that person will actually take down what you have to say and will tell the person in charge, hey.
So it's not the fact that you showed up.
No, it's the fact you have a meeting.
It's the people who are with you.
It's the people. Mm-hmm.
So remember that. I'm glad you said that, because my father and I were having that conversation on yesterday in regards to certain things that he used to do to make sure that phone booths were taken out of all of our community. Phone booths are those things that you used to go in, you put quarters in, and
we
you
know.
Call the operator. I'm just making sure, because the drug dealer used to use the phone booths. They would get beeped, and then they would go to the phone booth, and we had a lot of back and forth. We had potholes and things of that nature. And my father went from house to house. He said when he went by himself, the police was like, oh, we're not trying to hear you. He went from house to house, did a sign up, and had all these names on there and said, these names won't change. And immediately the phone booth was released. Police officers start policing our communities better. They fixed the potholes, certain things that happened because people were involved, or he was involved, significantly involved with that, and that people were willing to get behind. And that's very important. Somebody else, go ahead. Lexis?
So I was thinking, or Can y'all hear me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when she was saying, we have to go out and vote, is kind of what he was saying, challenging the culture, but not just the dominant culture, but also the culture of sitting at home and being complacent, just going out on social media and not really trying to put something in action into change. Just, being okay with that, being okay with the complacency and the conformity, as a lot of people have said, that they have been told to conform. This is what you do to fit in, to move up, to be accepted, to be okay. And so a lot of people have gotten used to that. So there has to be some kind of culture challenge within our culture as well.
Yes.
And you are starting to see that, especially like with like hair, for example, with natural hair. In like the 80s and the 90s, there was the Jerry curl, the perms, all the
I
stuff
had one,
that,
by the way. I had an S curl. Yeah, go
all
ahead.
the stuff that was, it would change fundamentally. If you want to go to work, if you want to be accepted and fit in and get the better jobs, you conform. You get straight hair, you get curly hair. And now, it's starting to move back to where natural is better. There are challenges, natural hair challenges. There are people that are accepting, the Don't Rush challenge, where there are lots of people coming out and they're showing that being us, being natural is okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
I'm going to piggyback on what the three of you said. As I was praying over what exactly, because you got to have your pieces together, what you want to say. One thing that I wanted to specifically say to our generation is that not in an army, not all the soldiers are on the front line.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
We can't put everybody out there to protest and march and to do all that work. Everybody has to have a job. So for those of us that are sitting at home wondering what can we do to help, you have a job. At your job, I'm pretty sure there's a committee that is over different things that needs to be done, that oversees what happens to the different people in the building. Go join that committee. There are people that are amongst us. Millennials are the most educated generation. We're the most educated generation. So why not go out there and fill those incumbent seats that are sitting there, that have people that have been in those seats for years, that have done nothing for your community? Why can't you go out there and sit in that seat? Why can't those teachers that are tired of not being heard, are tired of worrying, are tired of going in their pockets to buy supplies for their classrooms because they actually teach in the Title I school and they don't get enough resources for that, so they go into their own pockets. Why don't you go join the school board? Why don't you go make your voice heard? Because this is now our time. We have to move differently. My mother was a Black Panther, so I'm a little militant sometimes in my thinking. But listen, whole stories. Okay, so our modern day lunch sit-in is going to be us sitting in on these meetings.
Wow.
Us sitting in on actually sitting at the table. Bishop and pastors say this all the time. Good. It's okay. It's not okay with just being in the room anymore. Mm-hmm. You now have to have a seat at the table. We now have to take seats at the table and finish these things that the people in front of us have tried to do. You have to. Yeah. We have to have a plan. We have to. The way of the old worked for them. We can use that model and make it work for us. But we have to be together. We cannot be competitive against one another. We have to work together.
Push each other.
Yeah.
Can I say that this advice is not just for the Black community? This goes beyond racial lines.
Speak on it, John.
And I'm not trying to whiteify it. I'm just saying this advice, everyone do this. I'm looking at you. You do this, okay?
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
And if you have the honor of having a seat at the table already,
Yes.
be the change.
Yes.
Okay? If you already have a seat at the table, have the humility to maybe empathize when someone says, I'm hurting, rather than say, yeah, but what about this?
That's good.
Rather than dismissing their pain, have the humility to sit there and try to understand. If you don't understand, try. Say, can you help me understand? I've never been through what you're talking about. I'm not aware of what you're talking about. Can you help me become more aware? Or Google. So that's it. I'm just going to sprinkle that on this advice, and then we'll just keep going.
Let me say this. Let me just piggyback on that. John, thank you so much for saying that. Let me say this to all of my brothers and sisters who wants to be down with the struggle. I am not like Malcolm X, who, when on his way into the college, the university, to do his statement, a white girl asked him, what can I do to be a part of it? And he looked at her and said, nothing, and walked away. No, there is something that you can do. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for using your platform to be able to say that. Everybody has got platform here. Use your platform to be able to say that. When you hear racism, deal with it. Say something. Martin Luther King said that it is not regrettably that I will remember the insults of my enemies. It is that I will remember the silence of my friends. So if you want to do something, say something. Just say something about it to your friends or to your circle that I don't have an opportunity to get into. Say something, and you will help us out. Go ahead.
And if you don't know what to do, look up for something to do.
Yes.
If you don't have the information, find the information.
Yep.
There's books, there's documentaries. This is not new. Black people are not just now speaking up. Technology has not just become something that allows you to research. You can go back to microfiche if you need to. Find the information that you need. And I say that not just people who want to become allies to us, because I can say that one thing that I can't express well is frustration with, tell me how. How can I help you? Like, I know a lot about a lot of things that ain't got nothing to do with me because I looked them up. And that's why I'm so educated on so many things.
Yes.
You know, I went to school for social work, but I know a lot of things outside of social work. Why? Because they interest me. And so I look them up. I read books. There are law books in my trunk right now. I'll never be a lawyer. This is not my anointing. But I'm going to know some answers because I'm interested, and I look it up. Yeah. But not just for our allies, but for us as well. Because voting is great. I say this, please cast your vote. Yes. And don't just cast your vote, cast an educated vote.
Yes.
However, not only do I need you to vote, but I need you to get involved. Because that involvement is not just for our allies, that's for us. There are more organizations than we need, in my opinion, that all serve the same purpose. But they're there. Pick one, join one, get involved, sit on a police review. It's really easy to get on. You just gotta ask, usually, because ain't nobody else there, because no one knows it exists. Yep. You know, join something, go to a meeting. You know, 4 Cliff, I'll plug mine. You can go ahead and join 4 Cliff. Dallas, Fort Worth, Urban League Young Professionals. In Fort Worth, you live there. I live in Dallas, I'm sorry. But in Fort Worth, you have the bridge. Pick something. Get on to it. Join it. Be a part. There is one movement, many parties.
That's right.
In this movement.
That's right.
Pick one. Cast your vote, but also be moving. Even with this protesting, not everybody's going to grow up and be in office. Not everybody's going to grow up and be the CEO. We are going to still be at all levels of life. But if we don't not only just vote, but also get that education to our entire community, then we don't have the opportunity to excel at any level. Yeah. We need to be able to be great like we are, but everywhere. All of us. So for the ones that are setting the buildings on fire, and the ones that run the company.
You like them matches, don't you?
You just
you like them.
Fire.
I'm with you though. Pastor, say something real quick. Education, or actually, Malcolm X, you mentioned just a minute ago. He said something that was really important. I think that's perfect to this conversation. He said that education is the passport to the future. For tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. I mentioned in my previous statement 3 things we need: education, legislation, representation. As a black community, these are 3 things I think we definitely need. I think we need them for this one particular reason. If we have great education, not only can we strip the psychological making of the black man, the black community off of us, but we can also understand culturally what we are representing and what our value is. I think that once we do that, then we can get into the playing game that's global, not just America. Because ultimately what we're talking about, and I'm sure you agree, we're talking about sustainable development, sustainable change. How can we take this moment and how can we not just say, okay, for the next 2 days we're gonna do a blackout of, not buying from a different vendors, or we're going to protest at this place, and then once it's over, they're gonna say, okay, give them about 2 weeks, they're gonna scream and holler, and they're gonna walk around the walls of power, and they're gonna throw rocks, but in about 2 weeks, everything go back to normal, and we can still keep doing what we're doing. So how do we take this moment, sustainable change? And if we can do that, understand that education first and foremost, because, universal law says that how a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So how are we thinking? How are we processing? I also think that when it comes to representation, we have to find those people within our community we can put in that position. One of the things you and I have talked about in multiple settings is how do we form groups to where we can say, okay, this is the person that we want to put here. How do we support that and elevate that to get that into a particular place? Because ultimately, when you look at Congress floor, they're a lobbyist for a reason because they're pressing a certain agenda in the place it needs to be presented. So how do we do that? Have that representation that can enact certain legislation or change that which already exists. So not that it becomes favorable for us, but that it just gives us an equal playing field to know that when we do go to these different places and we do fill out applications, that our race does not matter more than our credentials.
Yeah, let me, I know, no, they're trying to wrap me up. I'm gonna give, that's what the light is for. This is right. See, it's blinking, it was blinking. Oh, that's wrapping me up. And I want to be very, very respectful of everybody's time. I'm gonna have final remarks, which will be about 60 seconds. Patrice, is there anything that you would like to add?
For those who may be watching, and this is just a thought that has been sitting with me. I said it the other day, I'll say it again. For those who may be watching, since the revolution is being televised this time. If you're sitting at the table and you're not saying the right thing because you said something a while ago, that some people are saying something, but they're not saying the right thing. So just in case you're sitting at the table and you're not saying the right thing, and you're just blabbing off at the mouth, we hear you, and your silence is painful, and we're coming for you via our vote, via different policies and legislation that we're about to shift, and via education in our communities. We're coming for you, and I'm not talking about people with the hue of skin that I have. I'm talking about a people who are tired of the hatred and the bigotry. We're coming for you, and we see you.
Time's up.
Phil, you have anything you want to say? Phil said, I just love Jesus. I just want to be a part of.
Hey, man, listen, as long as you don't go Drew Brees on us, you can say what you want to say, man.
Listen, that's all the time that we have for today. But I wanted you to have an inroads into the thinking of this now generation. Before we used to call them Generation Next, but they're now. And they have thoughts, they have goals, they're focused, and they're serious. I want you to take them serious. Their thoughts, their contributions, because I know that we cannot create the kind of change that our forefathers were dreaming about without every generation being a part of this movement. I want to pray for you before I go, and then that will be it. Father, I pray that every person that has watched this, that has seen this, Father, would be encouraged to do something within their own right, whatever you have called them to do, Father, in whatever venue, whatever field, whatever career. I pray in the name of Jesus that you would give us wisdom behind our voices, and that you would help us to be able to be effective. You said in the multitude of counsel, there's safety. So that even as we enter into opportunities, new opportunities and boardrooms and are faced with new challenges, I pray that you would help us to remain vigilant. Help us to remain sober-minded, unmoving, unyielding, in Jesus' name. Now bless every family that's represented and help us to find unity in the midst of division. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you. See you later.